The promise. Candlelight danced across the marble floors of London's most prestigious ballroom, casting golden shadows that matched the shimmering champagne in crystal flutes. I stood at the edge of the crowd, my silk gown rustling softly with each breath, watching the swirl of couples moving to the gentle strains of a waltz. The air was thick with the scent of roses and orange blossoms, brought in by the cartload to decorate the Hartley's annual spring ball. Mother had outdone herself with my presentation this season. The pale blue silk of my gown caught the light perfectly, its silver embroidery glinting like frost on morning flowers. My dark curls were arranged in the latest fashion, with tiny diamond pins that sparkled like stars against the deep brown waves. At 18, I was considered the crown jewel of this year's debutantes, though the thought brought me little joy. I knew what it meant. An endless parade of suitors, each more concerned with my dowry than my heart. The season had already brought forth a dozen proposals, each more calculated than the last. Lord Pembroke with his aging estate and mountain of debt. The young Duke of Ashworth, barely 16 and pushed forward by his ambitious mother. Even my childhood friend Thomas had tried his hand, though we both knew there was no spark between us. "You look utterly bored, my lady." The voice carried the hint of a smile, rich and warm like honey. I turned to find myself staring into the most remarkable pair of green eyes I'd ever seen. Nicolas Owensby stood before me, the notorious charmer of London society. His dark hair fell in perfect waves, and his evening clothes were immaculate. A perfectly tailored black coat that emphasized his broad shoulders, a crisp white cravat, and a subtle gold pin that winked in the candlelight. But it was his smile that caught and held my attention. Crooked and genuine, nothing like the practiced simpers of other gentlemen. "I assure you, sir, I am perfectly entertained by my own thoughts," I replied, lifting my chin slightly. His reputation preceded him, a different lady on his arm at every ball, a trail of broken hearts in his wake. Just last week, I'd overheard Lady Winterbourne warning her daughter away from his dangerous charms. He laughed, the sound rich and unexpected. Lady Caroline Bentley, defending the excitement of standing alone in a corner. I must hear these fascinating thoughts of yours. The orchestra began a new piece, Mozart, one of my favorites, and he extended his hand. "Dance with me?" I hesitated, but something in his eyes made me place my gloved hand in his. As he led me onto the floor, I felt the eyes of the entire room upon us. The music began, and we moved together as if we'd danced 1,000 times before. His hand at my waist was steady and sure, his touch sending warmth spreading through my entire body. "Your thoughts, my lady," he prompted, guiding me through a turn with effortless grace. "I was thinking how tedious it is to be paraded about like a prize mare at auction," I admitted, surprising myself with my honesty. "Each potential buyer examining my teeth and checking my pedigree." His eyes widened slightly, then crinkled at the corners. Refreshingly direct. And here I thought you were the perfect society miss. Perfect is rather dull, don't you think? The dance continued, but something had shifted. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, ranging from books to art to travel. He was surprisingly well-read, challenging my opinions on Byron with clever observations that made me laugh despite myself. When he spoke of his travels in Italy, his eyes lit up with genuine passion that made my heart flutter. "You should see Venice in the moonlight," he said, his voice dropping low. "The canals turn to ribbons of silver, and the whole city feels like a dream." "You make it sound magical," I whispered, lost in the picture he painted. "Everything can be magical if you look at it the right way." His hand tightened slightly on my waist, and I realized how close we'd drawn together, closer than propriety strictly allowed. When the music ended, I found I didn't want to let go of his hand. He seemed equally reluctant to release me, his fingers lingering against mine as he bowed. That night, marked the beginning of what seemed like a dream. At every social gathering, Nicolas sought me out. We would find quiet corners to discuss everything and nothing, our conversations punctuated by lingering looks and brief touches that set my heart racing. He showed me a London I'd never known, secret gardens hidden between townhouses, tiny bookshops with treasures in their dusty corners, and quiet moments that belonged only to us. One afternoon, he took me to a hidden courtyard garden he'd discovered. Roses climbed the ancient walls, their pink and white blooms nodding in the gentle breeze. We sat on a stone bench, reading poetry together, his shoulder pressed warm against mine. "She walks in beauty, like the night," he quoted softly, but his eyes weren't on the book. They were on me, intense and full of something that made my breath catch. "Of cloudless climes and starry skies," I finished, my voice barely a whisper. His hand found mine, his thumb tracing circles on my palm through my thin glove. The touch sent shivers up my arm, and I knew I was falling deeply, irrevocably in love with him. I knew what people whispered behind their fans, that I was just another conquest for the notorious Mr. Owensby. But when he looked at me, I saw something different in his eyes, something real, something that made me believe in magic and true love and all the things I'd dismissed as girlish fantasies. Until the night of the Hartley's summer ball. I had arrived late, having spent too long choosing the perfect gown, deep emerald silk that made my eyes sparkle and my skin glow like moonlight. The ballroom was crowded, and I searched for Nicolas among the dancers. When I didn't see him, I made my way to the terrace for air. That's when I heard her laugh, musical and intimate, followed by his unmistakable voice. I turned the corner to find Nicolas pressed close to Lady Penelope Howard, his hand cupping her cheek as she gazed up at him adoringly. Her golden hair gleamed in the moonlight, and her beauty made my heart sink. "You know you're the only one who truly understands me," he murmured, and my world shattered. I fled before either could see me, but the image was burned into my mind. How foolish I'd been to think I was different, special. I was just another in his long line of conquests, another notch in his belt of broken hearts. The next morning, I convinced my parents to let me retire to our country estate in Derbyshire. I claimed the London air disagreed with me, that I needed rest. In truth, I needed to escape the whispers, the pitying looks, and most of all, the chance of seeing Nicolas again. The countryside welcomed me with open arms. Spring was in full bloom, painting the rolling hills in vibrant greens and soft purples. I threw myself into managing the estate, learning everything I could from our steward. The physical work in the gardens helped ease the ache in my heart, and slowly, I began to feel like myself again. I spent my days in the rose garden my mother had planted years ago, pruning and tending the delicate blooms. Something was healing in nurturing beauty, in watching life unfold according to its own gentle rhythm. The roses didn't care about society's expectations or broken hearts. They simply grew, bloomed, and shared their beauty with the world. But peace was not to be mine for long. One misty morning, as I walked through the rose garden, I heard hoofbeats on the gravel drive. My heart stopped when I saw Nicolas dismounting, looking travel-worn but determined. His clothes were dusty from the road, his cravat slightly askew, so different from his usual immaculate appearance. He carried something small in his hand that caught the early morning light. "Caroline," he called out, his voice carrying across the garden. "Please, let me explain." I turned to leave, but his next words froze me in place. "What you saw that night, it wasn't what you think." Lady Penelope was distraught over her brother's illness. I was comforting an old friend, nothing more. I've been a fool in many ways, but never about my feelings for you. I faced him slowly, steeling myself against the sight of him. But what I saw made me pause. Gone was the polished dandy of London society. This Nicolas looked raw and vulnerable, his eyes shadowed with lack of sleep. There was an earnestness in his expression I'd never seen before. "Why are you here?" I asked, proud that my voice remained steady. He opened his hand, revealing an ancient ring. The gold was worn smooth with age, set with a stone that seemed to hold starlight within its depths. As the morning light touched it, colors swirled in its heart like the northern lights I'd read about in books. "This belonged to my grandmother," he said softly. "There's a story in my family about it, that it was blessed by a wise woman centuries ago, enchanted to reveal true love. It shows the bearer's heart's desire, but only if that love is pure and unselfish." As he spoke, the stone began to glow with a soft, warm light. Inside its depths, I saw images forming. Nicolas and me in the bookshop, laughing over Byron. The two of us walking in the secret garden, his jacket around my shoulders against the evening chill. Every genuine moment we'd shared. But I also saw moments I hadn't witnessed. Nicolas pacing his study late at night, writing and discarding letter after letter to me. Him questioning his past choices, realizing how empty his life had been before we met. "I've changed, Caroline," he continued, taking a step closer. His familiar scent, sandalwood and leather, wrapped around me, bringing back a flood of memories. "The man I was before, the one who flirted and played at love, he died the moment I met you. You showed me what real connection means, what it is to truly see someone and be seen in return." The ring pulsed brighter, and I felt a warmth spread through me, like sunshine after rain. Magic tingled in the air around us, ancient and powerful. The roses seemed to lean closer, their perfume intensifying as if nature itself held its breath to witness this moment. "I don't expect you to forgive me immediately," Nicolas continued, reaching for my hand but stopping just short of touching me. "But I'm asking for a chance to prove myself, to show you the man I've become, the man you helped me become." The morning mist swirled around us, touched with golden light. In that moment, I felt something shift in the air, as if fate itself held its breath. The magic of the ring seemed to hum, a melody that matched the beating of my heart. "How do I know this isn't just another pretty speech?" I whispered, even as something deep within me recognized the truth in his words. He held out the ring. "See for yourself." With trembling fingers, I took it. The moment it touched my skin, the world around us changed. The garden blurred, and I saw visions in the stone. Nicolas spending weeks researching his family history to find the ring. His sleepless nights after I left London. The truth of that evening with Lady Penelope. I saw him comforting her as she wept over her brother's worsening condition. Saw how he thought of me even in that moment, wishing he could share his own experiences of losing a sibling young. But more than that, I saw his heart laid bare before me. The love there was real, profound, and transformative. I saw how meeting me had awakened something in him he'd never known was sleeping. A desire for depth, for meaning, for a love that could last beyond a single dance or stolen kiss. The visions faded, leaving us standing in the misty garden, changed by what we'd seen. Nicolas reached for my hand again, and this time I let him take it. His touch was gentle and reverent, as if he held something infinitely precious. "I love you, Caroline Bentley," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Not for your beauty or your status, but for your brilliant mind, your kind heart, and the way you challenge me to be better. I love you for the person you are when no one else is watching. The woman who reads Byron in the garden and dreams of more than society's expectations." Tears blurred my vision as I looked up at him. The morning sun broke through the mist, surrounding us in a golden glow. The ring warmed in my palm, its magic pulsing like a heartbeat. "I love you too," I whispered, the words carrying the weight of truth. The real you, not the mask you wore in London. He pulled me close, one hand cupping my face as the other wrapped around my waist. When our lips met, the ring's magic surged around us. Golden light spiraled upward, surrounding us in a shower of sparks that felt like falling stars. The roses burst into sudden bloom, their petals opening to release waves of heavenly fragrance. At that moment, I understood what the old legend meant. True love wasn't just about passion or romance, but about seeing and accepting someone completely, flaws and all. Nicolas slipped the ring onto my finger, where it fit perfectly as if it had been waiting for this moment throughout the centuries. The stone settled into a gentle glow, a constant reminder of the magic that had brought us together, and the love that would keep us that way. "Tell me more about Venice," I said softly, leaning into his embrace. His smile was radiant as he held me close. "I'll do better than that. I'll take you there. We'll watch the moonlight on the canals together, and I'll show you all the magic I promised." As we walked through the garden together, planning our future, I realized that sometimes the greatest magic isn't in enchanted rings or ancient legends, but in the simple courage it takes to open your heart and trust again. Nicolas had proven that love, when real and true, has the power to transform not just the heart, but the very soul. And so began our new chapter, written not in the glittering ballrooms of London, but in the quiet moments we shared, in the gentle magic of everyday love, and in the promise of a future filled with all the adventures we would face together. The ring on my finger glowed softly, a reminder that some promises, once made with a pure heart, become the most powerful magic of all. In the years that followed, we often returned to that rose garden where we found our way back to one another. Each visit, the roses seemed to bloom a little brighter, their perfume a little sweeter, as if blessed by the magic of that morning. And though we traveled the world together, seeing all the wonders Nicolas had promised, we always knew that the greatest magic was the love we shared. A love that, like the enchanted ring, would shine brighter with each passing year.